Hi, it's Josh Goldberg here. In today's video, I'm just going to illustrate for you how the borderline person, the narcissist, and the psychopath will reverse reality because of intense, unresolved past emotional trauma. So a healthy person that doesn't have any traumatic emotions that they're holding on to will experience the world through their perception, and the external stimuli in the outside environment will invoke certain emotions inside of them. So the outside environment comes first, then how they perceive that stimuli will then bring a certain emotion. So the narcissist, the borderline, and the psychopath start with their emotional trauma first. So the emotional trauma is already existing. It hasn't been resolved since childhood, and that emotional trauma is very strong, and that's what they operate from, and they seek to avoid that, and they seek to unconsciously recreate those emotions. So they start with their emotional trauma first, because when a person has very strong emotions, it takes their attention away from the outside world because the emotions are very overwhelming. So it starts with the emotional trauma, and then they seek to deal with these emotions, and because they're not able to deal with these emotions in a way that actually regulates them, they will seek to project them. So they start with the emotional trauma first, then those emotions become their thoughts, and then they will perceive the world through these emotions. And this is projection. They project those emotions outside onto the world, onto the environment, and whoever is in that environment. So they actually paint a picture through these emotions that were pre-existing. This is what creates repeated situations with the person with unresolved trauma. They will have these emotions every day, whereas a healthy person will experience different emotions on different days. But the person that's carrying unresolved emotional trauma from childhood and from the past will have these emotions on a daily basis, and they will project them. So say, for example, the emotion of rejection. The child was rejected by their parents in childhood. That's how the child felt. That's hurtful to the child. A secondary emotion of rejection is often anger. So this is what the person is feeling underneath on a daily basis. Their inner child is feeling rejected and hurt and angry. And in an attempt to deal with these emotions, because they're not able to feel them and let go of them, they will project them outside onto the world. This is the reverse order, how the borderline, narcissist, and psychopath will reverse the order of reality by starting with the emotions and projecting them outside. This is why when you're in a relationship with one of these types of personalities, it just seems to be a hopeless, revolving circle of pain and confusion, because it's coming from the person's emotions first. They had these emotions well before that they even met you, and now you're experiencing the projection of these emotions, which actually, according to the other person, it changes the world that they live in. They're painting a different world through these emotions. So you can be having a pleasant situation with your partner, and then if these emotions are triggered by a specific scenario or a specific stimuli, they can then have intense trauma emotions from childhood, and then they will project these emotions to the outside, and all of a sudden, you, as the other person, find yourself standing in a different world, and now you're being painted as a different person. This is projection and projective identification. It's terribly confusing because you can't actually see it happening. So one minute you're standing in the world that you know, and the next minute you're standing in a different world. You're standing in a world of rejection, hurt, and anger coming from the other person. They're actually projecting this out. And for the traumatized person, for them, it's real. That's one thing that you have to remember, that for them, it's like it's actual reality. It's like it's real. So they are very convinced. They don't know the difference between the world that was before versus the world that they're painting now through their emotions. Because for the individual, their emotions are real, and what they went through was a real scenario. So the emotions make it real, but for you, it makes it terribly confusing, hopeless, And a lot of times it's hurtful and frustrating and creates very unpleasant emotions in you also, because all of a sudden you get painted as a totally different person to what you were 5 or 10 minutes ago or the day before. So this is very common with people that are in relationships with the borderline and also the narcissist and psychopathic personalities, which, as I mentioned at the start, are all personality structures that are built around severe childhood emotional trauma. So if you connect to this explanation, I just wanted to illustrate it for you today so you could actually see the difference. Please feel free to make a comment. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. Don't forget to like this video and to share it. It certainly helps a lot of people who might be experiencing this type of confusing emotional projection on a regular basis. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.